or something that might get me canceled, or maybe not. Trump. I don't like the man. I do not like Donald Trump. However, I will say that with his wall, dumbass idea, but this man kept talking about it. And I believe this man really tried everything he could to get that wall built. So for his supporters, it's probably like, well, he couldn't do it, but we see that he tried to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of politicians, we don't see them try to do anything. Are they really trying to do it?
Hey there, welcome to the Conversations with Uncle Kevin podcast.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Savannah, who I know a little about. She's she told me she's a background actress. That's where I met her. Two, she is in school. Was in school, studied an interesting degree. That's not common. That's what I remember. And born and raised, or not born and raised, but was raised in Dubai.
Yeah.
Jamaican heritage. Florida, somewhere in there.
I was born in Florida, yeah.
Born in Florida. What else do I remember? I have a good memory. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I've only met you like a couple times, so fair enough if you don't know much more.
Yeah. Who's offline. Like, this is the first human being I've met who's not online. So that is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How in 2022 are you not online?
Oh, no. I very much, I am online. Like, I have a Twitter account. I had an Instagram account. My Instagram account's like, nothing's on there anymore. Mm-hmm. But I have it for like, I don't know if I have to look something up on Instagram. I have a Twitter where I just like shit post to my friends. But other than that, like, I don't really have a lot of like public facing social media.
Yeah.
I got rid of my Instagram maybe like 8 months ago because I was just like, the performativeness of social media was just like too much. And I was like, let me just delete the app, and it was great.
Okay, that's interesting. And so what do you do on Twitter? You're a troll?
No, honestly, I follow Twitter for like TV shows, just Black Twitter. Black Twitter is just a very funny place to be.
Yeah.
So like I watch a lot of like RuPaul's Drag Race. I like knowing what's going on with Black people. I like when Black people make jokes about the Queen dying. That was a great time on the internet. And just like me, honestly, just complaining about like the weather in Vancouver. A lot of that. Yeah.
That's interesting. On social media. What were your thoughts on the Queen? Like
the Queen?
Yeah. Are you a fan of the royal family?
No. Like but okay, I'll say this though. Like I am fascinated by monarchy. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot about the royal family. I think they're all awful people, but I know a lot about them.
Because I saw the tweets that were put out.
Yeah.
About like, because when she died, people were like, oh, condolences. And then other people were going, oh, fuck that shit.
Yeah, no, the condolences thing, I was like, for what?
Yeah, for what? And then they're like, she's a human. Like, she's a queen, but she's a human. And then people are like, yeah, but who did fucked up things when she was
absolutely
alive or before the turn of the millennium?
Exactly. The entire time she was queen, how many millions of people died and no one treated them like they were humans? There was no condolences. There was no burials. There was no spending millions of dollars to commemorate the ends of their life. So this one woman dies. We're meant to all of a sudden have higher standards than them. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, that was sad.
What would have been even funnier is if she somehow held on for a couple more days and died on 9/11. Because the way the internet would have been a mess. Yeah. That would have been, wow.
That's crazy. So do you like the monarchy? Does that mean you're into politics?
Yeah.
Would you say you're a political connoisseur or you just from afar?
I'm generally interested in like the world and people and world politics and stuff. I'm not like, I have my own thoughts and feelings about it, but it's like I have opinions on a lot of political things. I like to say that I'm pretty knowledgeable on what's going on in most parts of the world, but I wouldn't say that like I'm not like a poli-sci major or anything like that.
Okay, what's your view on like the politics happening in the world right now?
What do you mean? It's awful. The world's a
mess. Trudeau's the best?
No, the world is a mess. Oh no! Trudeau is most definitely not the best.
Why? As my friend, Mr. Trudeau, come to the podcast. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, like Trudeau, if you're watching or listening, like I'd love to meet you, but honestly, like no, I don't think you're a great prime minister. Sorry. I don't know what he's done that's been so great, and I think that like. I'm not gonna be really mean to him today. we know that he's prime minister because his dad, Pierre Trudeau, was a really, really big deal. And that definitely obviously helped him. He's attractive, he's white, whatever. Like he became prime minister on this whole thing of I'm youthful, I'm a feminist, I believe all these things, I care about indigenous people, and then you become prime minister and you do none of that. I don't think he really has the the charisma and the pizzazz of like a good politician.
Yeah.
I guess honestly, he feels very sort of like average.
And then like I understand his okay, what's his alternative? See, I remember in 2020 the elections.
Jagmeet Singh?
Yeah, yeah, but still he doesn't have a lot of backing.
Well, yeah, because Canada's two biggest parties are the Liberals and the Conservatives, right? The Conservatives are also awful, but it's like I live in a world where I like to imagine a world where we can think beyond what we are told our options are. So Canada has two major parties and one smaller party. The only reason why that smaller party is not more popular is because so many people feel constrained by voting for either one of these two parties. At any point in time, that completely swap, right? Canada has not had the same popular political parties since Confederation, right? That has changed over time. So I don't know why it can't just change again. So I'm a big Jagmeet Singh supporter. I think he's great.
That's the NDP, right?
Absolutely.
Jagmeet Singh, you are my MP. Come to my podcast. Anyway.
Yeah, hey, if you're in the neighborhood, please, Jagmeet, I would love to meet you. No, he's so great.
Why? Like, I don't know much of his policies, obviously. I just know the Liberals because they do run this nation. And the Conservatives, they are weird. Like, because when you say Conservatives, I don't think of like the Republican Party in the States.
No, it's different.
And they're totally different to the point you're like, Canada doesn't really have an alternative from the Liberals. I don't see them ever losing.
No, those are the two biggest ones. I think when it comes to Canada's political situation, like there's a lot of things about Canadian politics that I think makes it complicated. Because I think one, really and truly, I don't think countries should be this big. I don't think it makes sense to figure out how one federal government can govern such a large and diverse piece of land. But hey, that's what we're working with, right? I think, let's say, I don't know how many seats Canada has in Parliament. Say they have 250 seats or something like that. 150 of those seats are in Ontario. So really and truly, Canadian politics comes down to Ontario. That's why Ontario gets the most amount of attention. They also have the most amount of people, fair enough. But the reality is that most of the seats in Parliament or the significantly largest minority is in Ontario. So for everyone else in Canada, it doesn't really matter because BC tends to be very liberal, very NDP. All the prairies are very conservative. The Atlantic provinces are very liberal, but none of that matters. Only thing that matters is Ontario.
That's where the money is.
That's where all the people are, and that's why Canada has developed their political system. So it's like we can talk about, flipping seats or whatever in BC, but all of it comes down to Ontario anyway. And a lot of people in Canada, I think, feel very ignored because of that. And that's why you have such serious regionalism across the country.
I didn't know this.
You live here.
I'm in BC. It's weird. What party runs BC right now?
What party runs BC? Who is... Oh, they just changed him. Who's the new guy?
I don't know. I gave up.
Okay, I think he's from the Liberal Party.
Oh, so it's Liberals as well.
I think it's Liberals in BC.
Yeah, whoever you guys are, I have issues with them. Because me, I'm more interested in the economy, and I feel like the economy of BC is terrible.
Oh, it is though. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And so, like, when it comes to economics, I'd rather prefer conservatives. I said it, but because liberalism is weird. But that's how, like, the way they run British Columbia is weird, and I do not know if it's sustainable over a 20-year period. I feel like this province is going to crumble.
Well, have you heard of Wexit?
Right?
It was this whole thing, I think, around like when Trump was elected in the US, and they were saying how Wexit was sort of like the western part of North America seceding, right? So BC, Washington, Portland, and California. So like if they could be an independent sort of country separate from the United States and Canada.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons people call for that just generally is because BC, I think, makes a surplus in taxes. And most of that goes back to the federal government to help out with places like Ontario and Quebec.
Yeah. Okay. So Wexit. But then the policies are not great though, because I'm assuming California and BC do have liberal leaders.
Of course, but no, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good idea, but it's like, but that is sort of one of the general pieces that all four of those parts of North America, of North America understanding, usually make a surplus in taxes, right? A lot of that goes back to sort of help out other parts that aren't as profitable. And those other parts aren't as profitable for, very obvious reasons. The Canadian government chooses where they invest, and they don't invest in, say, most parts of the prairies or rural parts of BC. So BC makes a surplus, but then they're always like, oh, we have no money because we're sending it to Ontario. We shouldn't send it to Ontario. But either way, all of it's a mess. Like I live here too, and rent is insane.
Yeah.
Just like be better.
Pay us back the taxes. I do like it when you give us rebates, but still it's weird. Yeah, because my thing is I noticed like when you look at British Columbia, the taxes, the problem is also the taxes to the individual people, right?
I absolutely don't think that's a problem. I will say this, all right. I do not think taxes are an issue, and I do not think getting rid of taxes is a solution.
So what's the solution? How do you get money back into the hands of the people? Because if
stop taking it out of their hands. People have money. Taxes. No, people have money. People have jobs. The problem is that you're putting money into the landlord's pocket because you're paying half of your wage on rent, right? You're spending all this money on stuff you have no money to keep. People have money, but so much money that's being taken from them.
But then the landlords also get taxed, right?
Well, yes, but it's like we know that money is not distributed equally and that money is not being invested in actual social programs to help support people and lift them up. Housing is the most basic one across BC. Not enough. Rent is so unaffordable for so many people, and that is the problem. People have jobs, right? People just like, I just want somewhere to fucking live, and they can't live anywhere. So what are they meant to do? Tax them less? Rent is still too much money.
Do you think rent can? But is there a place where prices go down though? I don't think that happens.
But the government can choose to do so, right? So I think it was in Berlin recently when COVID first hit, they put a rent freeze on the city. And then I think it was maybe like a year or something into that, the rent freeze like expired. And I think there was a bunch of like large people had to basically pay back that money, right? It wasn't like it was NP had to pay money. They were like, absolutely fucking not. So they protested. And the government I think they incorporated like 4,000 units into social housing. You can do that. Have you seen Finland's social housing situation? Something like 60% of the population lives in social housing, and their social housing is a 800 square foot 1 bedroom that costs $400, and there's a pool in your building, and this is social housing. I think we all can live more luxurious lives, but our government keeps oppressing us by not redistributing money equally. Because there are people who have a lot of money and people who have no money, and that needs to be evened out a bit more.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, but still, it's what happens to the landlords though? Because these people have invested real money into their housing, which is what is resulted in higher cost of living. So if you're
they're not investing money into housing, they're buying housing and jacking up the price. They're not investing money into housing. I had a friend who lived in Yaletown. He had a first floor, 450 square foot, 1 bedroom, no sunlight, staying at other people's apartments in Yaletown that he paid $1,600 a month for. Hold on. He moved out 2 months ago and the landlord rented it out for $2,400 a month. Nothing has changed to the apartment. Nothing has been upgraded. But they were like, oh, we can jack up the rent by an extra $800 a month because we can.
But then they would argue that, the central bank has been hiking the interest rates, increasing mortgage prices.
Okay, I'm sorry, but this is not a little mom and pop. This is not like I have been working for 60 years of my life and I've invested in this apartment building to sustain my retirement and my children. That's not what it is. Yeah. It's a massive corporation. Y'all don't fucking matter. There's so many companies that hoard so much money, and I don't know what good they serve us except to just hoard money. And it's just like large property developers. I don't know what you're contributing to society except increasing rents.
The thing is, last week on this same podcast, we had a landlord and we had this conversation. So I'm trying to recall his points he was putting out was, for them, is the cost of getting the house, but
this landlord, is this a single person who owns 1 or 2 buildings? Or is this his job?
No, he's a property. So he is an investor, quote unquote. He's an investor who owns multiple properties. He's also into property management. So he was breaking down like what the cost of just having an apartment that you rent out. And he's like, it's unfair, but you have to play the game. You cannot show up and be like, oh, I'll charge 1,500 when your costs are 1,600.
See, but like even all these property management companies, like if I have an apartment, only people I live in an old building in Kits. My building's something like 80 years old now, right?
Yeah.
I think we're owned by maybe our larger company of some sort. The only people who actually help to manage my building is my building manager, who's fairly old, her son, who does most of the repair work, and a plumber.
Yeah.
They do most of the actual physical managing. The problem is that we're paying so much money that's going to this property management company to pay these people $120,000 a year to sit at their desks and do BuzzFeed quizzes and maybe fill out a few forms every couple days. Like, you're not really doing anything. Have you heard of a book called Bullshit? Have you heard of David Graeber before? David Graeber's an anthropologist, but he's really good. He wrote a book called Bullshit Jobs. And it's basically like how so many jobs nowadays are bullshit, right? People go to work and they're just moving paper around a little bit and sending emails, but they're not really doing anything. They're not adding any value to society. But we just create jobs because we've structured a society in which you have to work 40 hours a week to sustain your life. Therefore, we have to just create jobs for people to do. And when you're a politician, it looks great to say, I create 100,000 jobs by bringing Amazon in here. But we don't need them.
What do you mean?
We don't need them.
You don't need Amazon?
No, we also don't need Facebook. We also don't need Instagram. Facebook and Instagram could literally die tomorrow and we'd all be okay. We would be okay. But we're investing so much money into them for some reason. Why? What value do they add?
Connect.
Like, sure, like, I guess, no, WhatsApp, though, I could say WhatsApp, fair enough. Fair enough, WhatsApp, I think, incredible. Instagram, Facebook, just text your friends. The one thing, my biggest friend I did Instagram was that I was like, if I don't have Instagram, how am I going to stay in touch with people?
Yeah.
And then I was like, it's fine. If people need to reach me, I can give you my phone number. You can text me, right? I spend so much less time performing friendship by going through stories, liking pictures, commenting, versus being like texting me, oh, do you want to hang out on Monday and get lunch? Just actually have a conversation and make genuine connection versus this really fake and just like surface level thing that we do through Instagram. So you don't need it.
It's interesting. Because I'm thinking I listened to the Instagram CEO and he was speaking like their main product was Instagram DMs. That was like the main performing functionality they have on their app. And now that's why they're shifting to copying TikTok, whereby videos, so your feed is, now they're doing the reels and stuff because they're trying to, I guess, they've come to the same realization and conclusion as you have. But then when you think back on how Instagram was started, right, it was post a picture and instantly share it with your friends. And that was the core of where they began from. But to say if they do, so do you see a world where we do not have Meta?
I really sit here and I dream of a world in which Meta goes bankrupt. It will probably happen, but I every day hope it does not. Because again, I don't like, it's so weird. I don't know what the purpose of it is. And he's talking about, oh, we can all exist on this video game because the world outside is burning, but just, why is the world outside burning? Just fix the world outside because I like being outside. I don't necessarily prefer to be, like, I don't prefer to FaceTime my parents. I prefer to see my parents in person. So why are we investing so much money in these alternative realities? We can just focus on our current reality and fixing these issues.
Well, the thing is, right, like the argument for Zux would be, you're in Canada. We're in Canada. You're in Canada and your parents say, in, I don't know, Nairobi, Kenya.
Yeah.
You want to interact, but then you can't necessarily. So let's meet into this virtual thing and chat. They show up as a donkey. You show up as as a cup.
But why? I can just call them. I don't know, like, okay, this is really the issue. There are bigger issues in the world than I need to be able to, VR my parents as weird animals in this alternate universe video game. Like, we have bigger fish to fry. People are dying, people are starving, people don't have housing. There's floods in Pakistan that have wiped out most of the country, right?
Yeah.
Why are we investing money in this shit called Meta? This is not important.
But to who?
Well, to the world, right? Because at the end of the day, as much as these rich people want to think that they exist in a silo, climate change is real and it's going to affect all of us. Maybe it will get to you later because you're wealthy, you can build a bunker somewhere in New Zealand, but it will get to you at some point.
Well, they're planning on going to Mars, right?
Hey, you know what? Maybe you go to Mars. You know what I mean? Maybe you make it to Mars. Unfortunately, I am not making it to Mars and my family's not making it to Mars. So I might as well invest in sort of making this a more livable place because I don't think that the solution is escaping it, because then we're not learning anything that's better. We're going to just keep escaping. We're not learning anything.
So how do you think, like, it's interesting when you break it down, like, you don't really need Facebook, but then how did they become so big? Because I feel like Facebook is not at a point where it's too big to fail. Like, there's no.
Yeah, I hate that concept. I hate it. I hate the idea of like a monopoly. It makes me very uncomfortable. Because it's like, it's this private company that has no real there's no accountability. Like, it makes me uncomfortable that there are people in this world who have more money than countries have as their entire GDP. Like, that makes me feel weird. Like, it makes me feel weird that Elon Musk could just throw around the idea of ending world hunger and it would literally make not a dent to his pocket. And he decided not to. That's weird. That is uncomfortable.
But he did not decide not to.
He said, the UN didn't give him a plan. The UN has plans. You can Google UN ending hunger plan. It's on the internet. There are so many plans.
That one I'll argue. He said, show me your plan. And the guy was like, they backtracked because he was like, if you're saying 15 billion will end world hunger, I will give you 15 billion today if you show me how. And then they broke it down and they're like, you need more than 15 billion because the issues are not that people have not been investing. The issue is money is invested and disappears into people's hands, which is a big problem.
Yes and no, because we always know like corruption is an issue, sure, whatever, right? But it's also like these systems that they're doing, okay, to end world hunger, right? The UN is run by the United States, more or less, right? Yeah. They're the largest funder, whatever it is, right? There is a famine going on in Somalia, right? They need food. The United States provides a good chunk of UN food aid. So the UN is buying corn from US farmers, buying wheat from US farmers, flying those into Somalia to feed Somalians. Yeah. Instead of being like, okay, there are farmers in Somalia. Let us buy our produce from farmers in Somalia and then use that to feed Somalians, right? Okay. So because what they're doing now is that you're flooding the economy with all of this foreign goods. Local producers can no longer sustain themselves. They go out and then there's no way of sustaining themselves. You're constantly dependent on UN food aid versus being like, let's buy our stuff from local growers in the area so that we're putting money back into the community and we're sustaining their own systems that they have. But they don't do that because that's not their priority.
So the problem is with the UN, not
the issue is with capitalism.
Oh, wait. Before you go there. So, okay.
Because the concern is for the US to make money by sending it to their farmers, not for Somalians to actually make money. The UN will now continue to have to constantly buy food aid from the US because that's where the food aid system currently operates versus spending those money in the communities that need it the most because they don't. All these larger systems just exploit a lot of developing nations. So
then, but who do we, is it, because I feel like the question then is that UN's ends, right? Like
the way the UN is structured, does not go with the actual values of the UN. That is what it is, right? So you're saying you're for all of these countries, but you're not. You're only for the 6 that are in the Security Council. Those are the only ones who matter. No one else matters.
Okay, so that goes back to we do not blame Elon Musk for these issues. It's the politicians who've messed it up for us.
No, but also but Elon Musk could just be like, I have all this fucking money. Let me just go around and hand out thousands of dollars to people. Because he could. Yeah. Because he literally could, but he's not. He is hoarding money. Because he could be like, the UN, you want $15 billion? Take it. Like, because for him, that's nothing. He has $200 billion. He could just be like, why is he even asking for a plan? Just be like, here you go.
No, because I feel
take the money. Do what you need to do with it. You have the programs. Do what you need to do with it.
The question then is, what's the UN's budget? We cannot say the UN does not have 15 billion now.
But yes, but also I'm not here to say the UN is a great organization. Absolutely not. The UN is deeply flawed. I have a lot of issues with the UN and the way that it is structured, right? I don't think that the UN actively works to help people because they are not able to, because the way they're structured and the powers at hand, right? Yeah. Because UN funding, a lot of it comes from the United States. If you piss off the US, you therefore don't get funding.
Yeah. Well, my issue is not to say let's defend the UN. My issue is the UN, if I was to assume, I'd assume they have more than 15 billion in their
they have
account.
Lots of money. I'm sure they have lots of money.
They have lots of money.
But it's all for different things and different things.
Yeah.
And there's strings attached to what things can be used for.
Yeah, and then you look at a guy, say Bill Gates, who's probably donates $100 billion a year. Mm-hmm. Where is this $100 billion going? If we're saying 50 billion ends world hunger, where is... Because every year these people donate money and it goes to somebody and it does something, but still that thing is solved. We still have issues.
Well, and the issues is because what you're investing in is not a long-term solution and it's not a sustainable solution. A lot of humanitarian work is just band-aids because at the end of the day, the issue is capitalism. The end of the day, that is the issue.
But capitalism does it not work for everybody? Isn't capitalism?
No, how?
It works works for everybody.
If I am born and I am disabled, therefore I am physically unable to work 40 hours a week, and I live in a place like Vancouver, how does capitalism help me? I am a mother. I have been married to my husband for 40 years. My husband is abusive. I, at the age of 65, choose to get divorced from him. My pension is through my husband and his job. My insurance is through my husband and his job. When I divorce him, what do? Do I start working at the age of 65? I've been a stay-at-home mother raising our 4 children for the last 40 years of my life. How does capitalism help me?
Well, I'm trying to remember Elon Musk's argument was make things. So it was like capitalism works because if you make things, people buy things, and then you make capital because the basis of
it works if you already have capital. I don't have capital. I'm 65 years old. I'm leaving my husband. I don't have capital.
So the issue is you do need capital. So it's how do we get people to get capital?
Well, you have to. People don't the same, but you have to have capital first. And then you have to have a way to grow that capital. Not everyone can grow capital. We all cannot be Elon Musk. That's not how capitalism works. There has to be people who are oppressed for the people who are rich. And I don't think that makes sense. But I don't see why we all kind of live these luxurious, egalitarian lifestyles. Have you ever heard of fully automated luxury communism? Oh, it's a great word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fully automated luxury communism.
That sounds something like in Saudi Arabia, but yeah. Please do not come for me, Mr. His name.
MBS? Yeah, don't come for us.
Let's be best friends. I'm good.
Okay, yes. Fully automated. It was a book that was written. The book is really dense. Anyway, but the idea is that in a post-scarce society where luxury goods are, at a lower value because they're no longer scarce, we can all live luxurious sort of egalitarian lifestyles, right? So for example, like my iPhone, I spent $1,000 in it. Apple probably only spent $100 making it. If iPhones were only sold for $100, we could all have iPhones. What is seen as a luxury good. Right? We could choose to do that, but we don't because we live in a time of false scarcity. There is abundant resources for everyone, but we're creating a false sense of scarcity as a way to just make it easier for other people to just hoard all those additional resources. Because it's not accumulation, it's hoarding. I have no issue with saving or buying your little one house and having your little one investment or, buying a boat. Like, I love first class. I love this. We love it too. But like, there's a difference between accumulating wealth and hoarding wealth.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So you call it hoarding, but
Elon Musk cannot spend all that money in his lifetime. He can't spend it. His children can't spend it. His great-grandchildren cannot spend that money in their lifetimes. That is hoarding.
But his argument is he doesn't have it, though. Because his valuation comes from shares, which is just something that's not real. It's not tangible.
Yeah, but I also don't think the stock market really means anything. It's just fake numbers.
Yeah, that's what his argument is it's just fake numbers. I do not have this money that you speak
Exactly, but our entire world is dependent on these fake numbers.
True.
That's how it runs, right? If I don't have enough fake numbers, I can't buy a house. He has enough fake numbers, he can buy a house. The bank will give him that loan to buy the house because he has enough fake numbers. I don't have enough fake numbers. Okay. So as much as maybe it's not liquid, it's still like you still have all of this privilege because you have all of these fake numbers that I don't have, and I have no way of gaining.
Interesting. Well, if you do watch the podcast, I did a breakdown of everything she's saying of these numbers and how fake they are, but they're not. Okay, fine. It reminds me of a scene in Batman Dark Knight Rises where Bane goes to the stock exchange.
Yeah.
And then the guy is like, "Why are you here to rob us? There's no money here." And then his response is, "What are you all doing here then?" Because it was full of stockbrokers and stuff.
Literally.
But it's fascinating. So you're saying, okay, fine, but still, what can Elon do? Give everybody a share of Tesla and be like...
But then will the stock of Tesla go down because of that?
Well, because there's no money put in, right?
Well, if he just said everyone, say Elon Musk has, 1 million Tesla stocks, whatever, and he gave one of those stocks to 1 million people, I feel like the stock price would go down. Wouldn't it go down? I feel like something like that would happen.
It would, because,
Exactly, because they don't want that. They don't want that. They want someone to hoard all of these stocks, and the second they're not hoarding it, the stock price goes down. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, what is this? Have you watched the show Industry on HBO? Okay, no, it's this HBO show. It's on season 2. It's about, like, Wall Street, stock market. It's about this, like, investment bank in London.
Yeah.
Anyway, I binged all of season 1 a couple days ago, and just watching that made me realize that, like, none of this means anything. This is all just bullshit. You're all here just pretending and playing this game about numbers.
Yeah.
And what is going on? I don't understand.
Well, I think with stocks, it's just whatever the market is willing to pay. So if I say I start a company, you and I start a company, and then they'll evaluate it like with accountants and say, let's say for this podcast, right? And then they'll say you have $10,000 worth of equipment. And then what then starts to happen is how much would someone pay for that same podcast? Someone will say, I'll pay 15,000. So now,
who are they asking? I wouldn't
like
pay 15,000.
they're asking anybody randomly in the street, like, do you want to buy?
But they're not coming to me and asking how much would you pay for a Facebook stock. I would pay maybe 10 cents.
They do. Remember when they do what do you call it? The IPO. Mm-hmm. They will set it out and say Facebook is going public. The public, how much will you pay? And then the public, one person will be like, I'll pay $1. Someone will come and say, I'll pay $100. And then that's where the valuation goes from.
No, because most people, how much is a Facebook stock? I'm sure a Facebook stock is like $1,000.
Probably.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Most people in the world are now paying $1,000 for a stock. But there's 400 people who say they'll pay $1,000 for a stock and their first stock is $1,000. They're not asking all of us.
Yeah, because then it goes back to capitalism.
Exactly. How do we just inflate this price so us rich people can just keep playing this game of stocks all the time? Because it seems like it's a good time. It seems like it's a lot of fun, but it's like we take it too seriously and it's too important to our society. But I think it's just men just like...
No, but that's where all the money goes. I know a guy who did a breakdown of an economy. Like, where does the money go? The money filters itself into the stock market. So that's why people then start looking at it. Because what happens
No, because that's how our economy is currently set up.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a stock market.
Yeah.
There was no stock market 400 years ago.
Yeah, but the problem, don't you think for me, I'll say the problem is with banking, not necessarily people, because banks are the ones that...
No, I think banks are awful. All of this is awful.
All these issues. I feel,
all of these tentacles of capitalism, all of them are bad. Banks, the stock market, marketing, all of it.
Okay, well, I'm a marketer. What did we do to you? Okay, fine. I did spend 4 years learning to manipulate people, but...
There you go. It's the tentacles of capitalism.
It's dog eat dog. It's survival of the fetus. But still, what would you say is the solution?
I don't think there is a one solution. I think we need to allow people the space to try other things, right? I think that as much as I'm not pro USSR, not pro USSR, saying that, don't cancel me. When the USSR fell apart in the 80s, people said that was the end of history, right? And since that point, no country has been allowed to try anything else, right? You look at independence era Africa in the 60s, and people were trying to do something else, and they were very swiftly shut down by the United States and all their allies, right? So it's like, I think capitalism has made it impossible for us to envision anything outside of capitalism. We can't envision a world without it. And it's like, I think that we need to allow people to try something else, but the United States won't let people try anything else.
Yeah, because it doesn't benefit them, right?
Exactly, because their concern is our profits. So they're not letting you try anything else.
Yeah, because they have capitalism.
Well, yes, and they believe in spreading it everywhere else. Do what you want to do in your own fucking country. We're not asking for it. Why are you trying to come in here and involve yourself? They keep involving themselves. And at this point in time, they fucked up so many places that it's like the reparations you owe, insurmountable. Like, leave me alone, but give me the reparations. But don't tell me how to spend them. And that's why all these countries are going to China now, because China has less strings attached to all their loans. The US has too many strings attached.
No, but China, I don't trust them.
No. We also don't like China. No. Hello, guys, I'm Jamaican. The way Jamaica's been fucked by both the United States and currently China, I don't like either of them. But a lot of places are going to China because there's less strings attached to these loans. The US had too many strings attached. Look at all the IMF loans.
Yeah, but the US is more of they're honest with you, right? Like,
no, they're not.
No, okay, fine. I mean, in terms of if you want our money, you have to do A, B, C. Whereas China is like, we'll come in, take over your land. Everything is good. Kumbaya, we're best friends.
Oh, no. I think China's more honest. China comes in and says, we're giving you this $100 loan, but the interest is 150%. And people are like, fuck, we're desperate. We'll take it and we'll find a way to pay it off. And they do not. Then China takes it over. But you notice up front, while the US is coming in and saying, we want to give you democracy, that's not what you want to do. You want to come in here and just destroy my country. So we are no longer a threat to you. You don't want to give us democracy. That's not your concern. That's what they're saying it is. It's democracy. It's not democracy.
But what I feel US does is it's more of they want to protect their investment.
Assets, but they're not saying that. They're not saying, When they invaded Iraq, they were not saying we want to protect our investments.
That was a different.
They were saying we want to bring you democracy and defeat Saddam Hussein. What you ended up doing was just destroying the infrastructure of an entire country.
Yes.
So much history, so much of humanity's existence is in that country and in that part of the world. And the US was like, that's not our concern. What we want to protect is our assets. And just bombing back to the Stone Age, as they said.
Bush comes, have a conversation. True, but like I don't know if China's better.
No, I'm not saying China's better. I'm not saying China's better, but that's the only alternative. And China's successful because of the alternative. Both of them are awful. And I think that at the end of the day, we all deserve better than just China and the United States.
But is there a way like countries can do without both? It can be impossible.
But this is the issue, right? Is that it's the countries who are in charge are choosing not to. The US could just be like, actually, you know what, Iraq? We fucked up. We are here to actually help you, but you're not actually here to help us, right? Iraq can't do shit about it. Jamaica can't do anything about it. We are so small and insignificant on the world stage that we just have to, our entire existence is based on how well we're able to play off all these superpowers.
Yeah.
We have no room to decide what we want to do because what we want to do is limited by the US, England, China, whoever the fuck it is around us, right?
Mm-hmm. Because then that's the problem. Okay, that's a problem and no solution. Because I'm like, if I'm the US, I'm only thinking about US interests.
But like that whole sense of individualism that capitalism forces into you is the problem. That is the problem. The US is only thinking about themselves. They think themselves being the United States. I have a lot of thoughts and things about a lot of things. Like, I don't think we should be having borders anyway, because like you as the United States, you're not an isolate. You don't exist in a vacuum. We are all on this planet. We are all people, right? So you're out here fucking up all these places. Guess what? They flew into your Twin Towers. Like, you don't exist independent of all the decisions that you make, right? Yeah. You're here polluting the entire world. At some point, it will fuck up your country. It's already fucking up your country. Remember when Texas had snow and everyone was freezing in their houses? Yeah. Like, eventually, it will get back to you. We're all on this one planet. So all your decisions that you make, there are impacts and there are consequences.
So blame. Okay. I looked at it that way, but still, it's fascinating. So there is no. So we need the US to play ball at the end of the day.
No. I think this is a larger cultural shift. I think this is sort of like, at this point in time, burn it all down. Isn't that what Harsha Walia said? Burn it down. I think that maybe is the option, because the current structures we have, I don't think are really going to get us where we need to be. I think people have really tried their hardest, and they really are trying their hardest to work from the inside out. But the inside is just so rotten, it's not going to get us anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I think about Jamaica all the time, right? And it's like, what would need to happen in Jamaica? Like, just what would need to happen for it just to not, just like our crime rate to go down. Jamaica has an insanely high crime rate. We've had the highest murder rates in the world, one of the highest murder rates in the world for a very long time. Our murder rate's higher than places that are actually in the middle of like wars. Yeah. It's insane. And it's like, we're only 2.5 million people. The country's 11,000 square kilometers. Why is gun violence so bad? And it's an impact of things like slavery and colonialism, and then like the post-independence era and the Cold War and all these IMF things, and then now the influx of guns. And it's like, what would need to happen? And it would need to take a massive, something big would have to change, because these little band-aid things aren't working. Something big would have to change, because our current system it's not working. It's not working.
Yeah, that's true. But still, you can't really burn it down, because it was designed in a way also not to be burned down by whoever started it.
Well, yes, because it was designed by our colonizers who used exactly to oppress us, and now we're using it to oppress each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what it's going to take, but it's like, we need a different system. Even I think about Jamaica's political system is like the UK's like Canada. This is a parliamentary system, right? Yeah. But in Jamaica, vote buying is a very big issue. So politicians go into a community, elections come every 4 to 5 years, and they say, I'm going to give you $100 if you vote for me. Yeah. Right? People aren't afford to feed themselves. People aren't afford to send their children to school. They're not thinking about who is the best politician for my area. They're thinking about 2 weeks down the line, what am I going to do when my kids start school? What am I going to do when I have to feed them? I'll take the $100 and vote for this person, right? Like, I don't know if representative democracy in the way that we have it works in places where people are struggling for just basic necessities, because it allows for so much manipulation to happen within the system, because once this person is elected, there's no way to get rid of them until the next election, right? There's no way to hold people accountable to the promises they make during their campaign. So you elect them, they do nothing for 5 years, they come around, do the exact thing, give you another $100, you vote for them. They've done nothing except just take resources from your community.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Yeah, that's the question. What do you do?
I think that other forms of democracy can exist, but I think our current system is based on the Greek system, which is really weird because the Greeks were just the only people who were able to participate in Greek democracy were landowning men. And we were like, that is the one that we want to replicate all across the world. And it's like, why is that the one that we would choose? Because I believe that there are other forms of what we may call as democracy that existed in other parts of the world. It wasn't just monarchies and Greece. Other communities have other ways of governing themselves, but we've just completely ignored them and said that we're going to copy this one system, but it's not working. There's a book called The Dawn of Everything. I haven't read it yet, but apparently it's excellent.
Okay.
And it's written by David Graeber, who's, again, the anthropologist, and then this archaeologist guy's name is also named David. I was listening to an interview by the archaeologist David, and they were basically talking. The book is a critique of this big history idea that says, like, oh, we were hunter-gatherers, and then we became small communities, and we became cities, sort of like linear idea that we all progressed at the same time. And it's trying to break that down from both an anthropological and archaeological perspective. And one of the things they talk about is political systems, right? And alternative forms of democracy. And the only example I remember from that interview was whenever the conquistadors came into South America and got rid of the Aztecs, there was a key community that helped the conquistadors get rid of the Aztecs, whatever they were called.
Yeah.
The way their political system worked was if you chose to be a politician, what would be a politician? You went through like an 8-month process that would include like public shaming and then just like isolation as a way to break down people's egos. That way because your job is basically to serve the people, right? So it was an 8-month process just breaking down their ego so they were truly a servant to the people. I do not think that's what we should be doing, right? But it's like, that's an interesting way of thinking about it, right? Because your job is to serve people, right? Yeah. But I think that in politics, it is mostly about ego and not so much about the actual job of serving people. I think that in communities, again, this is pretty long ago, my degree was actually in anthropology, hence why I have all these examples, right? There was no way of sort of enforcing a leader's decision because there was no police the same way. There weren't laws. The state wasn't as expansive and as able to impose their will on people the same way. Yeah. So if you are, the chief of your community, right? The only thing you had was your ability to convince them that you were correct. That's why the idea of like oration and speech is so important, because if you said, okay, we're going to start planting corn and someone said no, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? There's no police. Of course you have your little guards or whatever, but the state apparatus wasn't as large and as involved. So as a leader, you have to be like, hey, what are my ideas and how do I translate them? And how do I convince these people to do them of their own free will? You had no way of enforcing it the same way. But now we rely so much on the state's ability to violently enforce things and not so much in actually, do people want to do this? Even like Switzerland's political system, they have a lot more. I think Switzerland has like direct democracy. So people vote regularly on all sorts of things. They're building a new park in your neighborhood. You vote on what the park is named. Do you know what I mean? Like people are more involved in everyday decisions that affect their communities and not just every 4 months they vote for the big people in charge.
Yeah. But yeah. Huh. Oh, it's true and true and true. But then I'm thinking, so like if you are these poor countries and that just adopted colonial systems,
well, you were also forced to adopt it. Like, remember, countries tried and the US was like, no, we're going to come and kill off your leaders. People tried alternatives and that was brutally put down.
So then how do we stop? Who stops the US though? Like, it's like, who polices the police? Because they seem as if they are the...
Absolutely. And again, like, that's why like the idea that there are companies that are more powerful than countries is uncomfortable, because it's like, who polices Elon Musk?
Nobody.
That's what I'm saying. That's weird. Like, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't know. It's...
But what would people... Because people don't people don't trust governments, right? And to an extent, they're like, we rather be with Elon because it seems to be a person of the people.
But people don't trust governments because governments have failed us, right?
Yeah.
In Australia, they have mandatory voting. So everyone is required to vote in elections. If you don't vote, you get like a $20 fine. If you're homeless, you don't get a fine. But everyone is required to vote in all elections, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to vote, there's no ID requirement. So
Okay.
voting in Australia, if it happens, whenever it happens, it's just a booth you roll up to and you put your vote down. They don't ask for your ID. They don't ask for your address. You don't ask for your name. It is purely based on trust.
Yeah.
That can only exist because the governing body that organizes elections in Australia is independent of the government. Therefore, people, even if they don't trust the government, they trust that body. And that's why they're still able to have such low barrier electoral systems because there's trust in the institution that carries out elections, right? The issue is that our governments have failed us, so we don't have trust in them. People in Jamaica don't trust the government. The government's like, oh, people don't trust us. But why? Why do you think we don't trust you? We have no reason to trust you because time and time again, you fail us. They fail you constantly because they come around during election time.
Yeah.
They say all these things and they don't do it.
Yeah.
Or something that might get me canceled, or maybe not. Trump. I don't like the man. I do not like Donald Trump. However, I will say that with his wall, dumbass idea, but this man kept talking about it. And I believe this man really tried everything he could to get that wall built. So for his supporters, it's probably like, well, he couldn't do it, but we see that he tried to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of politicians, we don't see them try to do anything. Are they really trying to do it?
Well, it's not that they don't try. I think that when you're outside of politics, like before you're in the government, you have ambition. And then when you get in, you realize it's a
But
whole
sorry, people have
different
been
ballgame.
lots of politicians have been in government for a very long time. In Jamaica, they're all in their 70s and 80s. They've been there for a very long time.
Not those.
Joe Biden's been in politics for like 30 years. He's been there for a long time.
Yeah, but he's in America. We know that the president doesn't really do anything. Like Congress runs the house.
Okay, I'll say this. When Bernie Sanders supported Hillary Clinton when he lost the election to her, as someone who is a very big Bernie supporter, I don't want to say it made me upset, but it made me feel away because I was like, I just wanted to come out and say we're supporting this person because we don't want the Republicans to win. And just not all this bullshit facade of I think she's the best candidate because you don't think that.
Yeah.
You were just saying the opposite 2 weeks ago. Now you're changing your mind. There's so much performance involved in politics. I think there needs to be less performance because there's a lot of like you're performing your election campaign. You're out there. You have to be charismatic and good looking. Have the right posters and the right jingles. That's all it is, and his ability to perform.
Yeah,
it's not about how good you actually are at making anything happen. It's about how good are you able to perform a politician.
But do the people care? Because the problem I feel is with the people, right? Like you have to perform to get the vote.
But then again, the day you think about again, like Jamaica, you perform. The $100 is your performance, and they're not because of their poverty. They're not allowed the privilege of thinking 5-10 years down the line. That is a privilege to be able to think long term. A lot of people don't have that privilege anymore, and less people have that privilege as we go on. That way, politicians are able to take advantage of that.
Interesting. Yeah. So I feel like governments have figured this out. Politicians have figured it out how to manipulate marketing, but still, because the goal is I need a vote. But then people, I think if you ask some people like the person you're about to vote for, what do they stand for?
People don't fucking know.
Yeah,
they don't know.
Compared to now, like if you look at the US, yes, there are Bernie Sanders fans, there are Hillary Clinton, there are people who are rocking with Biden, which are mainly people who are Obama fans, and
you still don't know people's policies. Do you ever get things in your mail for like elections and things like that? Yeah. Okay, do you notice how a lot of them don't really say what party they're running for? They just have their name and information.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, but what are your policies? They're always just like these vague statements. It doesn't say what party they're in, nothing like that. And it's like, why are you hiding that information from me? I don't understand. I can vote in the American election, so I vote in every election. So when I get my ballots and I have to go through and vote for all these random low-level political positions, and I try to Google these people, there's no website that has all the candidates, their main points in their campaigns. Here's to get more information. There's no information. If you go on the website, it's just bullshit words. And I'm like, okay, but where's the policy? I don't know. So you have to just guess. I'm like, okay, well, your name sounds cool. Because some of them don't have parties when they get further down. So I'm like, I have to just guess and be like, okay, you're black, I'll vote for you. Let's hope for the best.
But then, do you think? Yeah, I still blame the people. Don't you think that if people were asking these questions, then these people will be held accountable?
People are asking these questions, though. People are asking these questions. There's so many people at the bottom level, grassroots organizations, regular people who are asking these questions. The problem is that no one is listening to them because no one needs to listen to them. The people in power are not required to listen to them.
Yeah.
They're just required to listen to people who are voting.
Exactly.
Which usually means older, white, conservative. They're not required to listen to anyone else because black people don't vote and we're not registered to vote.
Why are we not registered to vote? Is it
because of rules around registering to vote and general, voter fatigue and lack of trust in the government because they failed us so many times? Because there's like ID laws. Well, there's so many things. Even just from the beginning of when they first won, they didn't allow us to vote for a very long time, and they allowed you to vote. And then there was all of these tests you had to do, ID requirements to vote. The fact you have to wait in long lines to vote. Voting's on a Tuesday in the United States. You get half a day off, but you might wait 8 hours in line anyway. Your job might fire you if you don't show up to work when you're trying to vote. Like there's so many barriers in people's places to voting. Then all these people are like, why the fuck would I vote? I have so many family members who are like, why would I vote? What's the point? I vote in Florida. I vote Democrat every single time. Florida still goes Republican every single time. What's the point of me voting? My vote doesn't count. In a place like Florida, I might as well just not vote.
Yeah. So how in America you guys have the college system, which is totally different, weird, whereby even if someone wins by popularity, they still lose.
Yeah, it's stupid. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But it's just another way they use to make sure that, they were able to control who becomes president, usually a white conservative man. Yeah.
Americans, I'm not American. Deal with your human here. But
yeah, sure.
That's interesting. So how? Because I guess it still leaves the question, how do we solve it?
How do we solve it? I don't know. I have no idea. I think honestly, we have to just burn it all down, however that happens. I really think that unfortunately, the world will probably get worse before it gets better because I don't think that people are going to be able to explore alternatives to capitalism until it comes to its inevitable end. Because even if you look at the ability of people to produce just counters to our current systems, because of the level of surveillance nowadays, you can't. There's no meeting in secret to discuss, a coup of your governments because there's so much surveillance. You can't do those things anymore.
What do they call it? Predictive technology.
Yeah, what the fuck? What? No, that's just, yeah, yeah.
I'm not a criminal, people. But still, that's interesting. So it has to bend down, but technically it won't, because I think
it will eventually. At some point, it will, because capitalism is inherently contradictory. So at some point, it will end. It will come to an inevitable end, but it's when and at what cost. And for me, the biggest concern is at what cost. That is what terrifies me. Is that at some point this is going to end, but how many people will have to die before that happens?
Yeah. I feel like you actually don't want to be the one who says you may need a world war to end it. But still, even if you have a world war, it only benefits those with more capital because they have the ammunition to go to fight, and then still it will affect the poor people because the fights will be on your lands, not.
And you'll be dead.
Lands that matter.
So it's just, what will it be? Because even if, again, I think something like 2/3 of Pakistan just flooded because of climate change. What's happening? Their monsoon before was very predictable. It'd be at the same time, the same areas. Now these are different monsoon winds that are brand new, affecting different areas of the country. That's going to start affecting all of us. Yeah. That is because of capitalism. People are dying because of it. So how many people are going to have to die? What is the world going to have to look like before this ends? I don't know.
I don't know, people. Yeah, this is interesting. Whoo! Well, the world is screwed. Enjoy it whilst you can.
Yeah, this is my fear all the time. I just sit here and stress about the world ending.
Yeah. Go to Mars.
Yeah.
Everybody go to Mars, which is a weird concept, but interesting as well. Do you think it'll happen?
Not in my lifetime. I don't think in my lifetime. I don't think there'll be a viable colony in Mars in my lifetime.
But it's a possibility.
I'm sure it's a possibility. Like technology is crazy nowadays, so I'm sure it's a possibility. But I don't think in my lifetime.
Okay, running away from politics. Do you know a guy called Andrew Tate? Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
What are your views on him?
Well, see, I didn't know anything about him because I'm not really on the internet. Like I don't have TikTok either.
Yeah.
So I only knew about him because I have a 17-year-old sister and I have Snapchat so I can watch her Snapchat stories.
Yeah.
And she would just post about how annoying all the guys are talking about Andrew Tate. I know very little about him, but from what I do know, I'm pretty sure I hate him. So I'm pretty sure there's nothing about him that I would like.
Okay, no, that's cool. Because I wanted to ask you about his views and policies.
They're awful.
But like, when he got banned, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
But is that not a scary thing?
What?
Because the way they banned him, it's not like they just banned him from social media.
Mm-hmm.
They banned him from everything: banking, housing.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, why?
Because he has misogynistic views, quote unquote.
I'm sorry, and George Bush is a war criminal. So, like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, even, oh my God, I don't remember the quote. It was a quote by, I forgot her name. Anyway, I think that capitalism spends a good amount of time trying to distract us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is Twitter, Facebook, whatever, whoever the fuck did all these bans saying that, oh, look at us being good guys and banning this guy because this guy is the worst guy. And it's like, what? There are worse people that you just excuse and turn a blind eye to all the fucking time. So I guess this is like good, but also like this doesn't fucking matter in the grand scheme of things anyway. But for social media, like I don't know how banning him from banking and housing is a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes any sense. But also like what is the point? Because it's not, there's no real gains. There's so much just like, again, performance of feminism, performance of equity, performance of, you know, diversity and inclusion and all these things. It's just performances. Where is the real tangible change? There is none.
Yeah, I felt yeah, the ban is weird. It was weird, like Airbnb getting involved.
Yeah, like it's so weird. That's weird. That's weird.
But then the thing that then becomes scary is if he can get banned to that level, it means anybody can, and there's someone who just decides like turn it off. But then the other thing that's scary for me was like when he was online, I think I read the stat where it said he had like 17 billion views.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know he had a lot of views.
So the question there was someone who was watching, and there's someone who was listening, and then if we ban him, there's still 17 billion people. Okay, not 17 billion people, but there's still like say a billion of people who still consumed his content.
Absolutely.
So should we also have to ban them?
But again, those are all band-aid solutions because at the end of the day, the issue is creating a culture that is not misogynistic. That is the solution. Banning misogynists, well, we keep creating them. So we're going to just ban everyone? Doesn't make any fucking sense. Just stop creating misogynists. We just keep creating more of them.
How do we stop creating misogynists?
Well, it's just creating a culture of, you know, I think that the level of individualism that we all feel, I think is a large part of the issue. And the sense of superiority that a lot of people feel because of structures like colonialism, white supremacy, racism, sexism, whatever the fuck it may be. Yeah, I think that the patriarchy is awful. Okay. Right? Who has power in the patriarchy though? Men. So men, take down the patriarchy. You have power within that system. You figure out how to get rid of it because it's not helping you either. But it also helps a lot of them. And that's why they maintain it.
Yeah, but like the question is how. I remember, I'm not a Andrew Tate fan, by the way, but I remember his point that he once made where he was like, women look at men in a holistic approach, but it's not that 100% of men have power and stuff. It's like out of that 100, let's say 10 men, 2 have power and 8 are just trying to survive. So they do not have the quote unquote power in this, like in your household. But even in your household, you likely find that that dude is probably by himself.
Okay, well, power is relative at the end of the day, right? So when I mean power, there's 3 guys here who are very misogynistic. If we're trying to have a conversation about misogyny, who will they listen to, me or you? Probably you, because you are a man, and therefore you have power in that situation that I don't have. right? As a regular person, you can make change. To the end of the day, it is about the people, right? And it's about things like having conversations with your friends, holding them accountable for their actions. And if you're not doing that, then you're just implicit in these systems that continue to oppress people. Because again, as a man under patriarchy, you have power. So use that power and educate other men on how this is bad for all of us and what you can do to make a difference. Because they're not listening to me. Because women have been having these conversations and doing this work, and nothing is changing because we don't have power under these systems. And it goes further up to the rich people in the world are all men. Most of the leaders in the world are men. The vast majority are men. If you look at the idea of power and control across the board, if you look at almost every single intersection, it's men. You want to look at fashion apparently is for women. Okay, most of the big designers are men. The CEOs of these companies are men. Who cooks? Mostly women, but most famous chefs are men. Most restaurant owners are also still men. The only thing women have a real majority in is, things like nonprofits, nursing, shit like that. But again, we don't have power in those situations.
So would you feel, if let's say Andrew Tate was pushing a different message than the one that he pushes, would he be as popular?
Maybe not. I don't know. But I think that, again, we know that our algorithms tend to promote things that are like scandalous and controversial and things like that. And we know that social media is a large part of why people are becoming radicalized, because the algorithm just likes to feed you more and more extreme content.
Yeah.
So I guess it wouldn't, because the algorithm wouldn't promote something like that the same way it promotes something like Andrew Tate.
And then, which poses the question I asked, where I was like, so the problem might be the algorithm, though. Because if it did push like equality or whatever, like a better message that
but then people are not
watch.
interested in that. That's make people excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then if it's the only thing you're being served, you have no choice. Because right now you're being given.
But because of capitalism, someone will always be like, my goal is to make money. Therefore, I will create a platform that will push more extreme content and people will use it. That's what they're looking for.
I blame you, social media. Because the thing is,
all of it's awful. Again, it's the tentacles of capitalism.
Yeah, because I feel like on both ends you have extremists, right? Like you have Andrew Tate, you probably have, I don't know, John B on the other side who's pushing a different message.
Okay.
And if the algorithm pushes this guy and he's as eccentric as Tate is, because I think the message he pushes is not new to him. It's just he was a performer and
stuff he's part of a whole group of just like incel people on the internet.
Yeah, and then on the other side of it, you do have the same people. I feel like it does benefit social media to have an Andrew Tate, because he creates a conversation whereby you have his supporters and then you have the people who are against him, and for them it's more.
And you get more engagement, more money because you get more ads.
So the problem is
capitalism.
Meta.
That promotes this kind of behavior.
Meta. It's not capitalism.
Well, it's not happening on Instagram, and it's happening on all the platforms, and they're not all Meta.
TikTok.
TikTok's doing it too.
Yeah.
TikTok's not Meta.
But still, they're all bundled. So that's the issue. Misogyny. That's how we end it. So you're saying men are the solution to this problem?
Oh, absolutely. What? I'm sorry. The patriarchy will not fall if men do not get involved. It's not going to happen. The same way racism will not end if white people do not get involved.
But do you think men will get involved if...
Well, they're not.
Because it does benefit them.
Exactly. But it also doesn't. But it also does.
Well, because I took an argument, say I don't know if you follow the US soccer teams, they had an issue whereby the women wanted equal pay. Mm-hmm. And then the argument was, from a marketing perspective, the product that the men produce is better.
They make more money than the women do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
they bring fans and ads and things like that, of course.
And then so from that perspective, it's the women have to be paid less because you have to eat what you kill. But then they had an argument where the US government was like, okay, we'll fund you both. We'll pay you equally. But what would happen is, for women, they would want things like spas and, I don't know, manicures, pedicures.
I'm sure the guys don't get all this shit.
The guys were like, instead of getting that shit, give us money. So instead of the spas and whatever. So it's like, at the end of the day, you pay me $500,000. And then they were like, okay, we'll pay this guy $500,000. And then for you, we'll pay you $100,000 plus give you all these spas and whatever. And then the women were like, no, we also want the $500,000 cash plus the spas and this. And then the men, they had a backlash going, hell don't know. If you're gonna get 500,000 and all these amenities, we want it, or I'm not gonna fight for you, or whatever. I don't know what the case ended up being, but in that case, like, is it an issue like for how do we solve it? Because I feel like for men, the feeling is if I'm fighting for say equal pay, if I'm being paid $5 and you're being paid $2, and then the employer's like, okay, so I have to take from your $5 to give her so that you guys can be equal. This guy will go, why should I lose my $5?
You just pay her more.
Yeah, you can just pay her more.
Yeah, he doesn't. No, but saying he doesn't have to lose anything. No one has to lose anything. You're only losing because capitalism is placing the responsibility on you. I think it was a few years ago. Remember, I think Nintendo was going bankrupt or something, and the CEO chose to split his salary in half as a way to not fire people. Because he's already making so much fucking money, so half of his salary was still enough fucking money. No one has to lose. There is no losing.
But see, he had to cut half his money.
Well, he had to. He already had so much. But he's the, the person who's hoarding the wealth. You as a regular employee, you should not have to make less so someone else can make more. Everyone can just make more. All these senior people are getting 200% of their base salary and bonuses every year. They don't need that. Yeah. Your pay is already like $600,000 a year.
But then we do have a situation where you do have women in those positions as well, making X.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. I don't think Elizabeth Holmes is a feminist. She's not an icon to me of any sort. She's a capitalist the same way Mark Zuckerberg is.
Yeah. So in those I feel it's so weird though. Like, how do you?
I would say the U.S. soccer thing, I remember very differently. From what I understand, it was that their base salary for the women's team was lower than the men's, and the women only got paid more if they won a game, while the men got paid a bonus for every game they played, even if they lost. And a large part of the argument is that the men's team brings in more money than the women's team does. But then it's like, well, is your concern equality or equity? And my concern is equity, right? Okay. Money has not been invested in women's sports. No one cares about women's sports. And until you start investing money into women's sports, no one is going to care. So the women's team will continue to make less and continue to not bring in revenue if people are not giving them the same primetime positions for their games you're giving the men's team because you're not investing in it. But the fact of the matter is the women's football team is the best women's football team in the world. Fact, they are heads and shoulders above pretty much every other women's sports team in the world. Pay them. The amount of female athletes, the amount of athletes across the world, particularly female athletes who also have part-time jobs, in addition to being a top-tier, world-renowned athlete, the Jamaican netball team, netball is not a sport anyone outside the Commonwealth knows about or cares about. Netball, Jamaica has always been in the top 3 netball teams in the world, yet the Jamaican women's team, the people on that netball team all have full-time jobs. Netball for them is a part-time job, while the Jamaican men's football team, the Reggae Boys, who have won very few things in their existence, continue to get all this fucking money all the time. Yet here we have a top tier world championship who's doing this part-time. And they're already doing so well, beating England and Australia and all these places. And our football team is doing what? Nothing. And they're getting all this money. For what? Invest in the teams that are doing well. Maybe there's no reason why Jamaica can't be like, oh, we love women's netball. Why not? We're not investing in it the same way we're investing into football.
That's interesting. My friend gave me an argument where they're like, what about Trump? Like, he was banned.
Yeah.
And no one said Trump should not be banned.
Well, again, like, it just depends. Like, ban his social media, absolutely. But as I said before, like, I don't think that you should restrict someone's ability to just be a private citizen. So I don't fucking like Andrew Tate at all. But he should be allowed to have, like, his personal bank account and be able to rent an apartment for himself. Yeah. Fair enough if they don't want to make him monetize his content, absolutely. But if they are not allowing him to live a life as a private citizen, then that is most definitely an overreach. But it's just, again, like, they're placing all the attention on this one person as a way to absolve them of their own guilt. Because there's lots of other Andrew Tates that are on the internet, and they're just not going to ban them. They'll just focus it all on this one person.
Yeah, he gets to be the guinea pig. For now.
He's the scapegoat. Like, they do it all the time.
For now, yeah. Until it's someone else. They tried to do it with Joe Rogan. Didn't work, though.
Yeah, they tried.
He survived. What were your thoughts on COVID?
On COVID?
Yeah. How it was handled.
It was handled awfully. Yeah. Absolutely, it was handled awfully. Yeah.
What do you think would have been better if
Oh, I think, okay, Serb.
Yeah.
Great fucking idea. If there's one thing I will, say Trudeau has done well in his time as prime minister, it was Serb. It most definitely had flaws, but I think that was absolutely the right path to go down. And any country that did not do that,
Yeah.
and I understand there are difficulties in doing that in other places because, for example, Jamaica, a lot of things are cash based. People are in sort of like an informal job sector. But Jamaica could have just focused on, they could have taken a New Zealand sort of approach and just focused on getting cases down as quickly as they could in their own place and then restricting people's ability to bring the virus into the country. Jamaica did not do. They opened up real quick to all these tourists and they just, cases went straight up because we don't have the infrastructure to deal with like mass hospitalizations. But in countries that could, yeah, just give people some cash. Because I graduated from university in June of 2020. So right middle of COVID, I graduated. I was unemployed for a few months. I was on CERB for 6 months. Best fucking time. Because I think that was probably the most radicalizing experience of my life was being on CERB because I was like, I'm only getting $2,000 a month. This is not a lot of money. At that point in time, I was living in a basement suite with someone else. My rent was only $800. So it was fine. But I was like, I pay my rent. I have $1,200 to just spend on my life. I'd wake up every day, sit in the sun, smoke some weed, go on a walk. And I was like, wow, my quality of life is so much better because I know I have enough money to pay my rent, to pay my phone bill, to pay my internet bill, and buy groceries. I can't do much else, but I know that the necessities of my life are covered. My mental health would have been so much worse. And second, my mental health went right down because I was like, my job was like bullshit. It was this whole thing. But CERB was excellent. And my biggest disappointment is that they did not continue it and transition it into some form of universal basic income. I think that's the closest we've ever gotten to universal basic income. And I think that it would have been a groundbreaking move if they were to continue CERB and transition it to that. Because that would have been the time you've already developed the infrastructure for it, right? Just start working on it. And then they were like, no, let's scrap all this work that we've put in.
So you believe in UBI?
Absolutely. At this point in time, because I don't think we need to work. I don't think people should be working this much. I don't think we need to work this much. Again, because we don't need fucking Instagram and Facebook, right? At this point in time, we've automated so many things. There is not enough work for people to work 40 hours a week. It doesn't exist. So you might as well just say we only actually need 20 hours of work per person per week, maybe to kind of keep things running.
Yeah.
And spend the rest of the time and just live your life. I think the whole point of technological advancement should be to just create more time for us to just enjoy ourselves. But what it's created is just like more barriers and more stresses and just more problems and more inequality.
Because of capitalism.
There you go. Exactly. I'm happy you're catching on.
I'm still a fan. Capitalists. Invest in your boy.
Invest. When I say that, it's some form of like wealth redistribution.
Yeah.
Put your money into a black immigrant. We're from Zimbabwean. Yes.
Put it in.
If you're a wealthy white person, invest. Definitely. That's called reparations.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm your friend. Because I think they ran away from the word reparations.
They do. White people are so scared of being held accountable for anything.
Yeah. I saw. Do you watch Atlanta?
I didn't watch the most recent season because the intro episode was like scary. That first scene, and I was like, oh, and then I haven't watched it since.
Yeah, they had an episode of reparations. It was, I don't know what this guy did. Oh yeah, like it was approved that every white person had to pay reparations. And then so what they did was in that episode, the guy was working a normal job. And then this lady, he's like, oh yeah, my grandparents, we never had slaves. And then she tracked it back to him. Like, yo, you were your slave. I want my reparations. And they came over, took over his house. Like, it was just weird the way Atlanta is shot, but still, it was an interesting concept where they're like, yeah, out of all your pay, so the issue was out of your paycheck, you have to give like 30% to reparations, and then it goes down to the family. So this family came into the house like how black people do it, like partying at his house, like, yo, we're here. And they were just showing it from his perspective of like
the white guy's
perspective, because he was going with the I'm not rich.
Yeah.
I'm just a normal person.
Okay, but that's not what it's going to look like, and that wouldn't make sense. Like, again, this is a TV show and they're trying to do a thing, but in reality, that's not what it's going to look like, and too many people think that's what reparations looks like, and that's not what it looks like. What it looks like is increased investment by the government into programs that help oppressed communities, i.e. Black people. That is what it looks like. It's not a white person donating their salary. It is potentially increased taxes on the wealthy. Sure, invested into Black communities when it comes to things like education, infrastructure, housing, things like that.
But where are the taxes right now going? Because the thing is, these governments are all broke though.
Yeah, no, they don't work. So we just bring them down and make a new one.
Yeah, because I feel like even with tax the rich, it's like, no. If you look at like America or Canada, SIB, where did the SIB money come from? If you're saying there's no money, all of a sudden, those 6 months, the money just magically appeared.
That's what I'm saying. All these fake numbers. What are all these fake numbers?
Yeah. So it's like I don't feel you even need to, because I know Canada has like a GDP of a couple of trillions.
Yeah.
And a population of like 15 or 30 million.
It's like 30 million.
30 million people. So yeah, it could magically appear and disappear.
I guess. That's how money works apparently.
Yeah. But still it created issues because now we went into the whole inflation period because of that. Because
I'm sorry, no. Let's say this.
Yeah.
The reason we are currently in inflation is for multiple factors, and that factor is not CERB. That may be a factor. It is not a major factor in why there's currently inflation. Because the responsibility for inflation is not on regular people. Yeah. We don't create inflation. The stock market is like, the value of shit changes for some reason. Let's just increase prices. Like, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Just make the prices lower.
No, because what happened was like during the pandemic is people were getting the 2000 and we're still working. And then people were not
and they were still working? I'm sorry.
No, as in people were not. So how do I put it? People's income on average went up, but then they were not spending it.
Yeah.
So now like demand was higher, but then still people had money. And then the government, because when they gave out those 2000s, especially American, they did not take it from like an existing account. They printed money that they gave out without any basis of it. So now you have 2000, let's say 30, I don't know how many billions they put in that is unaccounted for. You have to account for that. The market will punish you for that money that you cannot create fake money. That's what they did with SIB and the 750 in America.
See, but that sounds like a misunderstanding of the situation, because when I got my $2,000, I was most definitely spending it. I'm sorry, $2,000 is not a lot of money. Most people who got their $2,000 SIRB check, that was not enough money for them anyway. People were spending that. There were people who had businesses who were collecting government checks to support their business and hoarding that money. Yeah. Regular people who got $2,000 were not hoarding that money. That's not enough money to hoard. The issue is Amazon getting $1 billion in tax breaks or whatever because of the pandemic and then hoarding it.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos is not spending his money, but I am spending my money. I don't have money to be saving.
Well,
most people don't have money to save. And again, we're placing the responsibility on regular people who are just trying to live their lives and not focusing on the fact there are people who are hoarding this wealth and not putting it back into the economy. Because when I spend my money, I was spending money in Canada. Where else would I be spending that money? I was putting it right back into the economy.
Which is true.
But Jeff Bezos is not. He's taking it and then spending it on his private island. I don't fucking know. Where rich people spend money. Yeah. Regular people are putting money back into the economy. All the money I make goes back into this economy. I have nowhere else to spend it. I would love to, but I'm not rich enough.
Yeah, but that's true. But still, the thing is Jeff Bezos does make his $1 billion. The average person gets 2,000, spends it on Amazon. Amazon sales when Apple made.
Oh, of course they did. Yeah.
Here's the thing is like Apple made $1 billion a day in that same period of time. So people were spending money on luxurious goods. And we're starting to refuse to work, which also created issues.
I'm sorry, but the jobs weren't paying people any money. Exactly. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, this is no regular person's fault. The currency of the world is not the regular person's fault because they're demanding a enjoyable life and they're refusing to work for $7 an hour. That is not on them. People are not willing to degrade themselves to work for $7 an hour or $15 an hour. That's not livable. At this point in time, living in Vancouver, a livable wage is $70,000 a year. And they do not make that, but you don't make that. I'm sorry. I am an adult. I should be able to live by myself because I am an adult. And the fact that I have to sit here and be like, I'm going to have roommates because I can't afford anything else. And all these jobs thinks it's okay to pay me less than $70,000 a year because our standards are so low. Increase our standards. We all deserve better. We all should be able to live by ourselves if we want to.
But then is that one is tricky.
Is it tricky? Some businesses will fail. Hey, you're not profitable enough. Isn't that capitalism? If you cannot afford to pay your employees a livable wage, you are not a profitable business, and therefore you should not be a business.
Exactly.
That is what it is.
But then how many businesses make enough profit to be able to
They
pay?
don't. Sucks to suck.
And then it's like in BC, I cannot argue for BC. That's why I was like, the economy doesn't make sense for me. Like it doesn't justify itself. Like
it doesn't, because capitalism is inherently contradictory.
But it's not just that. Okay, look at a state.
In BC, it's just extra worse.
Look at like San Francisco.
Okay.
So in San Francisco, my argument is if their rentals are high, it's because of the tech space, whatever. So you can get a job in the tech space to be able to afford your rent.
If you can get a job in the tech space. Most people don't work in tech.
Yeah, but then still, even those people who work in tech, they still spend money in the economy, which allows Wait, do they spend their money?
I'm sorry, but I feel like rich people spend money in other places because they have access to other places. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're rich, you make your job out of San Francisco, but you're going to Paris and you're going to Switzerland and you have an offshore bank account in the Cayman Islands. Most of your money is not going back into San Francisco. You're not spending money at your local mom and pop shop. You're spending it on these larger things in places that are separate from where you are currently located. There's more opportunity for that, the more money you have.
Yeah, but still, I feel like they still do, because the thing is,
say they make $1 million, right? They may only spend $500,000 in San Francisco. Other $500,000 is going to an offshore bank account in the Cayman Islands that will never be spent in San Francisco.
Yeah,
because they have $1 million. I have $2,000. I have to spend all of it here.
Yeah, no, but what I mean is, if you are making, say, in San Francisco, 70,000 and your rent is 35,000 a year, you're able to afford it. In Vancouver, it's not that you'll be making 70,000 a year. It's quite low. Like our minimum wage is what, $50?
It's in California. It's also $15.
So okay, no, yeah, California is a weird governor that I will not. I would like one day to be in Hollywood, but still, California is a little bit weird because their politics is terrible and the economy is terrible. But BC, like if you look at British Columbia, my argument is there is no economy that supports the cost of it. So on average, I don't even know how much people make. Like who makes 70,000 in British Columbia?
Most people do not. Most people who live in BC are not making enough money.
So,
but you also could just decrease the price of things. I don't know, do it. You're the government. Make it happen. I don't know, you're the government. Who's going to tell you no? If the Canadian government today is like, we are going to drop all rental prices by $500, who's going to tell them no?
Whoever the people who own this.
Okay, but who are they? I am the government. Who are you?
I am the house owner.
And if you are more powerful than me, the government, something is wrong.
Technically, you have policies in place that stop that, like the government from interfering in.
That's what I'm saying. The government is the only block to itself.
Yeah,
it's their own policies, but it's like, just do it. If you want to, you can just do it. But it's like the British Museum. They have an inalienable policy. What it says is that all artifacts, all pieces that they have acquired, I think pre-1940, are inalienable. Therefore, they cannot be removed from the British Museum. And therefore, every time someone is like, give this shit back, they're like, oh no, we can't because of this inalienable law we have. What? Just, you created the law. Just remove the law. You're standing in your own way. It's the same thing with the government. You're saying, oh, we can't do these things. Who told you can't? You said you can't. That doesn't make any sense.
The government
doesn't make any sense. Governments are also inherently conservative, and so are laws. The legal system we have is inherently conservative, and therefore it doesn't really allow them to make things happen. And it's like, okay, but y'all need to fix it. Someone needs to figure out how to fix it. And unfortunately, me as a regular citizen who's not a Canadian, so I can't even fucking vote, I can't do anything about it. I live here and I spend lots of money here, but I can't do anything about it because I'm not a citizen.
Anyway, so in this part of the podcast, I ask you questions that were written by a 7-year-old.
Okay.
The first question is, and please do not be shocked if you do believe they're not written by him, do not expose us. Okay. For what in your life do you feel most grateful?
I think my family. I think at the end of the day, I have a very solid support system. I think that's probably what I'm most grateful for, that I have a solid support system behind me.
That's good. If you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be?
I think in Jamaica there's a culture of beating children. And I've had a conversation with my parents about that. I'm sorry, does it happen in Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. My parents didn't beat my younger sister, and not like my parents were like super aggressive by any means, but I think that's one thing I'd probably change because we've kind of had conversations now about like why you shouldn't hate your children.
What's
Even
your
though it's
belief?
so normalized. You shouldn't hate your
Oh,
children.
you shouldn't hate.
Not to say that like if I have a child, I won't want to. Most definitely I will probably want to, but I don't think you should hate your children.
So what's the best way to discipline a child?
I don't think I don't think children need discipline so much. I think that we need to recognize the fact that children are also humans and are also autonomous beings and understand the fact that like maybe it is worth having a conversation
Okay.
versus just punishing them for some reason. That's the biggest
Mm.
issue I had growing up is I wish that my parents were recognized me as more of an equal and were willing to really level with me and have a conversation about things that they were not pleased about versus just punishing me instead because then no one learns anything.
Hmm, interesting. So you ought to have a conversation with a 5-year-old.
Absolutely, why not? Your 5-year-old's upset about something. Okay, why are you upset? I think so many people are unable to articulate their thoughts and feelings because at no point in our life are we encouraged to do so. And you start earlier, your 5-year-old is crying. Okay, is your 5-year-old verbal? Why are you crying? Make it calm down first and then have a conversation about why are you crying? What upset you? Not that it's going to be an easy conversation, but I think it's an important exercise that we start doing with young children.
Interesting. Okay. What is the greatest accomplishment of your life thus far?
Oh gosh, I think that's a weird question to ask.
Yeah, I didn't write this stuff. Okay. Thus far.
No, that's just a weird question to ask because it's something I've been sort of working on is not focusing on accomplishments
Mhm.
and more enjoying the journey to something and not sort of like the outcome
Oh,
of
okay.
something because I'm someone who's very focused on the end goal
Mhm.
and will sort of just like do whatever it takes to get to that end goal, right? Even though the process maybe sucked and I didn't give myself space to enjoy it or do it properly or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to think of accomplishments outside from like I graduated university or I started like the BSU or things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, yo, nephew, rethink this one. What do you value most in a friendship?
Oh, honesty.
Honesty.
Absolutely. Honesty. Yeah.
Damn. How do you see honesty? Like
Tell me the truth. Whatever it is, straight up. Tell it to me.
But I saw a clip and the guy was basically saying, say you go to a play
Mhm.
and then when you watch the play, the terrible play you've
Mhm.
ever seen in your life, but the main actress is your friend.
Mhm.
And then after the show, that friend comes to you and goes, hey, hey. And then you do that, oh, that was a beautiful performance, whatever nonsense. And he's like, in that moment, do you tell her that this was terrible?
Have they asked for my opinion?
Yeah, they'll be like, how was it for you?
Then I'll be like, I'll be sort of kind or whatever. I'm not going to lie to you. If you ask, oh, how's my performance? And I'll be like, well, I think that you obviously put a lot of effort into it. I really appreciate the passion, but I think you were pitchy. You asked for my opinion. And I
Yeah.
think that if you're asking for my opinion, I owe it to you to be honest because I'm your friend.
Yeah.
You also don't have, you don't ask. That's fine. If you don't want to know, I don't have to tell you, but I'm not going to lie to you.
But then I also have a friend who says that's if you don't tell them, what do they call it? Lying by omission. So you have to.
No, that's different though, because like people, if you ask what I thought, I would tell you, but also you don't have to ask what I think.
Okay.
It's one thing if you ask what I think and then I therefore don't say it, therefore I'm lying by omission. But if you don't ask me, nothing has happened. I have not lied because the situation has not been created by asking the question.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Now you know. That's my argument. You didn't ask me. What does friendship mean to you? E7.
I think that it is I don't know because I've been thinking about this too because like I grew up in the UAE and then I came to school in Canada. So my friends are sort of all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So what my friendships look like really depend on the person because I have people I would consider very good friends who I haven't talked to in 8 months. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're not in the same place. I think at the end of the day, a friendship is a willingness to maintain a relationship. Whatever that relationship looks like, there has to be a willingness to maintain it.
Okay.
And when there's no longer a willingness to maintain a relationship, then you're just no longer friends. And that's okay.
Okay.
If that's what it is, that's what it is. Like if I'm no longer a person that's good for you, fair enough.
So you do have friendships, so you don't speak for 8 months and then just pick it up like.
Yeah,
Yes,
whenever
I
I'm in
guess it
town, I'll
is.
text you and we go and we have a great time.
Damn, that's
Because like
nice.
we're not in the same place. And that's one thing I think that people who are born and raised in the same place don't understand is
Yeah.
that I can be friends with you and not talk to you constantly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I don't talk to you for 6 months, it doesn't mean that our friendship has dissolved. It means it's just sort of paused. Whenever I see you, we pick up where we left off. It's not in a lesser state because we haven't been actively communicating. Because I just don't see you.
Well, Zach said we can connect.
But also, like, do we need to connect constantly?
I don't know.
Because I think that all these social media platforms, because I think like before you had like letters, right?
Yeah.
And then you had letters and phones.
Yeah.
And then you had to maintain those two forms of communication. When I got off Instagram and no longer had to maintain Instagram as a form of communication, my anxiety lifted to a degree because there are so many things we have to constantly maintain.
Yeah.
You know, your texts, your phone calls, your FaceTimes, your Zooms, your Instagrams, your Twitters, your Snapchat, your TikTok, your Reddit, whatever. That's ridiculous. That's too many things for us to constantly have to think about and constantly have to maintain.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I just maintain less of them.
I never thought of it that way. Damn. Okay. Thank you. What's something people seem to misunderstand about you?
I think people think I'm a bitch sometimes. And like I understand why. I think that sometimes I can be very blunt in the way that I speak, and I can be very forceful and very direct. And I think that I come across as intimidating sometimes, and that can be interpreted as being bitchy and or judgmental. I think that my intention is never to be those things, but I understand they may come across in my actions. And I always just ask that people bring to my attention something that bothers them, because the same way that I will tell you when something bothers me because I want to maintain a relationship. If I'm sitting here and holding on to hurt and guilt, then that is decreasing my ability to maintain a relationship and be present in our relationship. So I think that the one thing people misunderstand is I think people judge my intentions sometimes because of the way I deliver things.
Okay. But if they're misunderstanding you, how do they bring it up?
I don't know. Just feel okay doing it. I think lots of people don't feel comfortable advocating for themselves. I think that we've been disempowered in a lot of ways because of all the systems that oppress us. So I don't think a lot of people feel comfortable bringing concerns up, just generally in their lives. Also, people don't even feel comfortable being honest to their friends about how they feel about their own lives and themselves. So I think that like we all have our own trauma and that reflects in different ways. But the one thing for me is that I've had to just learn that I cannot, like, your trauma is not necessarily my problem.
Yeah.
And this is the way that I am. And if you don't feel comfortable advocating for yourself in this relationship, then maybe it is best that you are not in this relationship, right? Because I don't want you to feel like I am oppressing you because you can't advocate for yourself.
Interesting. So you are receptive if someone does speak up.
Yeah, tell me what it is. I'm not going to sit down and be able to respond immediately, but I will most definitely, like, if you say, Savannah, I don't like X, Y, and Z, fair enough, right? But you will need to be open to a conversation about this because, like, it takes work to maintain a relationship, and we both have to put in the work to maintain this relationship.
Y'all in. Savannah's friends. Get a DM. Okay, no DMs. Text her. Call her.
Text me.
Call her. Speak up for everything you've been holding in.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't hold on to shit. It's not good for you. I think it gives you like high blood pressure. We have too much high blood pressure in the world.
Yeah. All right. If you could turn back the time and talk to your, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay, good. If you could turn back the time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Don't minimize yourself. Absolutely not. Do not minimize yourself. Don't compromise. Don't do it. Because I think that now I personally am unable to balance. I don't know how to compromise on things. For me, I think in things in very sort of black and white ways, as you can probably tell. So things sort of either two extremes. It's either I am unapologetically myself absolutely all the time, or I go too far and I'm minimizing myself. And I think that in some situations I went too far to minimizing myself. Because I think that, especially as a woman, you were taught that your needs are secondary to that of your community, your partner, other people in your life. And I probably say just absolutely don't do that. Don't compromise. Why would I compromise on things in this life? I shouldn't.
Yeah, to my future daughter, do not.
Don't compromise.
Don't compromise. Anyway, anybody don't compromise. I feel like the messaging should be to everybody. Because I feel like it's a thing that comes as well. Like, let's say you grow up in an African community. For us, the problem was you were in a way told you were less than white people coming up.
Mhm.
And I felt like when I came here, it's like you be in the same spot, say in class, and then you're like, oh, but he's white. He's probably smarter than me. And then it's like you also have the same answer because you read the
Mhm.
same book,
Mhm.
listen to the same lectures. You're not really.
Mhm.
And yeah, that is a mind fuck that we all have to fix somehow.
Oh yeah, again, that's why you've been disempowered. Again, like the world is telling that you as a black person are not as good.
Yeah.
Therefore, you don't have the same self of confidence and assurance in yourself when you step into the world. And therefore, a lot of people don't feel comfortable again advocating for themselves because they've been told that their voice is not as important as other people's voices.
Which is shocking. Andrew Tate is black. Shit.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Again, the manosphere is for all men. Unfortunately, there are also black men in this world.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm just saying, like, for him at least, he's a terrible example, but then at least you're like, at least there's one where you can be like, that guy. Because, like, the way, let's say, Joe Rogan is popular, right? It doesn't mean he's the only one with podcasts that touch on the topics that he touches on.
he's
that
just the most
speak-
popular.
There's the most popular, and he is white, which is, it is what it is at this point. But I'll move on from that before I get myself back. What is the most important thing you've learned in your life? What was your life like before learning it? What was your life like after learning it?
Be confident. I would say that like, okay, so you can imagine, maybe you can imagine. I moved to the UAE when I'm 7 years old. I went to a few different schools, and all the schools I went to, I was always different in some sense, right? I
Yeah.
was either the only non-Muslim kid, the only non-Emirati kid, oftentimes the only black person, only person that people would consider black, because there were other black people at my schools who were like
Yeah.
Somali or Sudanese or whatever, but they were like, oh, we're Arab, we're not black, you are black.
Yeah.
And like my hair was like really long and it was a mess, and I didn't know what to do that. My mom had short hair her entire life, so like there's just lots of general insecurities.
Yeah.
And then I think I hit about 12 or 13 when the sort of like the the external pressure was peaking, and I think I made a decision just to be confident and just
Okay.
fake it till you make it. And I think that a lot of my current confidence isn't so much rooted in anything as much as like it has been a performance for so long that to some extent it is just self-realized itself as being potentially true confidence.
Yeah.
Because I I'm just like more myself. I think that by at least pretending to be more confident, I was able to become more of myself. And this is an ongoing journey of just becoming more of who I am.
Yeah.
When I think before there was so much pressure to conform.
Okay. Wow. All right. Every time I get different answers to this question. Mind blowing. What is the best compliment you have ever received?
Oh, people tell me I look like Rihanna sometimes. When my hair was short,
Yeah.
that was a good one. I really
Yeah.
like her.
All right. Bad girl, really. What is, I don't know if you have one, but what is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
I don't like to admit failure. I don't believe I fail at things. Hmm, I don't know.
No, it's-
I don't know. I don't believe I have failure.
yeah.
I guess that's it.
I guess yeah, it's the same. I think I've shared this before. I was like, Kobe Bryant had the same mentality where he's like, there's no such thing as failure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like maybe I've done things that I wanted to do better, but also like my life is now okay. Therefore,
Yeah.
obviously, I haven't fucked up in any
Yeah.
major way.
That's cool. That's cool. What advice would you give someone wanting to say pursue a career similar to what you're doing, or who just wants to be like you?
A career? Okay, so as everyone knows, hi, I'm Savannah. I do background very occasionally. I currently work for an anti-violence nonprofit. If someone wants to work for an anti-violence nonprofit, just start working there. Nonprofits are hiring, volunteer first. That's how I got my start. It's not a difficult field to get into because the work is difficult and they do not pay you enough money. So there's always vacancies if you're trying to work in a nonprofit.
Yeah, it's the not get paid part of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. We're not. No one in the nonprofit industry, except maybe the people at the very top, are being paid enough money for the intensity of work that we are doing.
capitalism. Because
Yes, it
capitalism
is.
issues because there's no profit. So, but anyway, I'm mumbling. Yeah. Who are the three people who have been the most influential to you?
Influential. I would say probably my mother, my grandmother, and Naomi Campbell.
Why?
Or Rihanna? Maybe Naomi Campbell. I think because I was really into America's Next Top Model when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I think that there were very few images I had of people who looked like me, especially being in the UAE where beauty standards are based on things like how feminine you are, how long your hair is, your boobs, things like that. Like people were calling me sir and misgendering me up until I hit about 16 years old. You know what I mean? Like I'm very tall, I'm thin, I had short hair. And Naomi Campbell, Tyra Banks, whatever. I think Naomi Campbell was the first famous woman I saw who looked vaguely like me, who had been successful for an extended period of time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At that point, Rihanna was like 22, so nothing had really happened. But it's like when I was a teenager, Naomi Campbell was in her late 30s and she'd been successful for so long and outlived so many people.
Yeah.
And she was still seen as a sexual object despite the fact that she's so skinny and has no boobs.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I had a lot of insecurity around when I was younger, was not being attractive enough.
That is a whole different podcast. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And your mom, how she influenced you?
Well, because like I think my nuclear family is very close because we lived in the UAE by ourselves. We didn't have access to other parts of my family for me to say develop strong relationships with them.
Yeah.
So my parents are very close to me. My mom, because like it's my mom. I'm the oldest child. You know, I think me and my mom are very similar people. And I think she's just influential because like my father is a pilot, so I spent the vast majority of my time with my mother. She's the main parental figure in my life, just because of the nature of my dad's job.
Okay, mom, see your work here. This is all you.
Yeah.
And your grandma?
Yeah, my grandmother is the most hardworking person I know. She's currently in her mid-70s, and I don't think that she sleeps. But as much as she's someone who works incredibly hard, she also really gives back. When I think about my own political philosophy, I really think about her and the impact that she's made in her small community in Jamaica, even though she's not involved in politics at all. She does not involve herself, right? But the amounts of children that she's taken and taken care of, the schools that she's built, she'll just give people money. At the end of the day, people in Jamaica just need funds to do stuff, right? And she's sent so many people to school. She's built nurseries. She's baked people's uniforms and things like that. Like she's very generous. Like she's not someone who believes in hoarding wealth. Like I think she's very generous that way. And I think that she is really a role model when I think about like who I want to be and who I think most people need to be like.
Hello, grandma.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And then any questions for me?
I don't know.
That's good. No, it's part of it. And then the final question is there any question that you would have liked to be asked that I did not ask?
No, not really. I'm not here to sort of like contradict things you say.
No, I have zero
Generally,
opinion.
I have lots of thoughts and feelings. I think about most of them across. White people suck. Colonialism sucks. Right. We should all be feminists. Trans women are women. All Black Lives Matter. Land back. All of that stuff. Fuck Canada. Yeah.
This is going to be a clip, all right, people. Anyway, any last words for the people? And where do we find you?
I guess you can find me. Okay, so my professional Twitter account and my very not super active Instagram are both at Savannah Sutherlands. So SAV Sav. My name is Savannah, and then my last name with an S. So SUTHERLANDS. Find me there, I guess.
Find it there. Reach out, DM.
Yeah, I check my social medias like every once in a while. See if people like message me. Hopefully,
she will see your message.
Yeah,
she's offline. Any final words for them as we say goodbye?
Yes. At the end of the day, none of us are free until all of us are free. So think about what that means and how you can enact more collective liberation within your sphere of influence.
All right, guys. See y'all next week. I hope you learned something. Today, you had someone who's not biased towards capitalism. I am a fan. I am a big capitalist. I need that capital because, yeah.
I also need that capital.
Yeah, I do not see this world changing anytime soon without you having money to invest and play the game. Hopefully change it from within, but we also need the world to have the conversation. Because I feel like we're not at the table because we do not have the wealth. It's like,
Absolutely.
It's just weird. Anyway, that said, thank you for gracing us with your presence.
No problem.
Reached the 2-hour mark. This is interesting. Thank you.